You're welcome back. You're still watching Business Incorporated on Channels Television. Now in our commodity space, we talk about a very popular product made from cassava. Some people call it cassava flakes, but it's popularly called Garri and is a widely consumed staple in Nigeria. The price of Garri has fallen by 27% to 13,500 naira for a 50 kg bag in the last 7 months. On the other hand, the rate of food inflation has accelerated over the past few months to 17.73%. Well, what is the relationship between this to the fall in the price of Garri, and yet we see a hike in food inflation? We have Longi Dafour, an analyst with financial derivatives company, to help us understand what's going on. Hello, Longi. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. So help us to understand that Garri is a staple in Nigeria and the price is down, and yet inflation doesn't seem to affect inflation movement.
Right. So the reason for that is typically in Nigeria, how the NBS usually determines the food inflation is based on a basket of specific commodities. Now, Garri is indeed part of that basket, but then within that basket, we have various commodities ranked by weight. So what we are essentially seeing is that what it signifies is that the weight that Garri has within that basket is lower than other commodities such as rice, onions, and so on. So even though the price of Garri is moderating, the prices of other commodities within that basket, like I've already mentioned, rice, onions, and so on, which are actually much higher weighted than Garri, are lifting food inflation up, even though we are seeing a moderation in the price of Garri.
So we have, Garri does have substitute Semovita, and we see Semovita has had its price also fall within the same period. And this, what does this tell us? Does it indicate that substitute may be moving in disparate direction from the price of Garri?
Yeah. So like you rightfully mentioned, Semovita is indeed a substitute for Garri, along with things such as flour and rice. So the reason why we are seeing this disparity between the price of Garri and its substitutes, which breaks the traditional laws of cross-elasticity of demand, is essentially because of our imports. So Garri is produced locally from cassava, which is found locally in Nigeria. And these substitutes, such as rice and flour and so on, are derived from, or rather, are imported from outside sources. So due to issues that we are currently seeing globally, supply chain issues, general supply constraints, and so on, these are affecting the global prices of these commodities which we are importing in. And these higher prices from imports are translating into the higher prices that we are seeing at the domestic market. So even though the price of Garri is moderating, the prices of its substitutes are indeed going up because of issues such as exchange rate pass-through effect and so on that are affecting these imported commodities.
So recently we saw the launch of the rice pyramid in the Federal Capital Territory. We have other programs, special agro-processing zones and investment schemes by the government. Do we see this feeding into the food inflation to at least see a moderation in the near future?
Yeah. So the government does intend for these initiatives, like you rightly said, the rice pyramids, which are expected to boost rice supply domestically and, of course, lower the domestic price of rice. What you would expect, or what we do expect, is that this should indeed have some effect on food inflation and moderate it. But then on the flip side, like I've also mentioned, global prices are high. And because we import a lot of the foodstuffs which we actually use domestically, these high global prices are going to feed into food inflation and should also have, it's going to become sort of a mixed bag. It should also have sort of a weighing down effect and drive up the prices of their food or food inflation and so on that we see domestically in Nigeria. So it's a mixed bag.
All right, so we'll keep our fingers crossed and see that mixed bag and hope that with the rice pyramid, importation of rice would at least reduce, you know. But thank you so much, Longi, for sharing your thoughts with us this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.